And yes, we are on with a bit of a problem, but we are here and we are live. And I hope that you all will be able to hear us and our discussion today, because we have had some kind of technical problems. So the question today is how to incorporate passion in your work. And you are much welcome to another episode of The Elevator. I'm Åsa Rydhard, executive trainer and global speaker. I'm on a mission to elevate experts into leaders on the global business stage, and this is a platform for that. People who are or want to be elevators meet and share their insights that will elevate us all. And I prepared something fun. Watch here. Today's guest is Emmy Rousseau. And this is a woman I met uh, like a year ago now, and I got to learn about her as a passionate person, a passionate speaker. We actually met at a speech competition. And
Hello, everybody. I hope that you would love to see you type in the chat if you can. It is such a pleasure to be here with Åsa today. I'm sure she was telling you about our audio challenges, let's call them. So if you can type in the chat, if you can hear both of us, each of us, that would be great. But just to start, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. Well, Åsa and I met through our speaking, and I don't know if she told you this, but she loved the speech that I did just for my speech competition, because I was talking about my passion of intense body fitness. And I really found my passion through, oh, there we go. Now we're both there.
yeah, talking about technical problems. So here's the thing. Emmy can't hear me today. She can't hear me, so I will write to her in our chat, and this is how it will work. So thank you for introducing yourself, Emmy. And yes, we met at a speaking competition, and I got to learn about Emmy and her passions in life, and that's why I invited her. So how, I'm writing to her now, how did you become, how did you um, learn about your passions? And there she got it.
So, yeah, how did I learn about my passion? Such a good question. I actually kind of knew, well, I used to think that I just wanted to be a teacher from the time I was 8 years old. And then I loved to dance, though, and I loved to do group fitness classes. And so I decided to open a business doing that. And I always wanted to be a speaker. From the first time as a direct salesperson, I saw this woman on stage. I was like, I want to do that someday. So I knew that those were two passions, and I didn't ever think, they would be working together. I really thought they were two different passions, and I would have this part-time gig as a fitness instructor and build a business as a full-time speaker. I mean, I've always loved to talk. I am a very verbose person, so it's no surprise that I want to be speaking. But when I did speech competitions in school and everything, that was my jam. So being in front of people and presenting to people has always been something amazing. And I think the teaching, the 22 years as a teacher, was just another way for me to present and to, so I'll always be an educator. It's now just in these two different forms.
Yes. And now I want to ask Emmy how she came to go from educator to the things she do today.
Yeah. I think even as an educator, I was a visionary, which is actually why I left the education system, because the education system as it is not serving educators nor students really in any great way. There are, and that's not to say there aren't some great teachers and there aren't amazing students. It's nothing about that. It's really the system. but I knew that I couldn't stay and make the difference that I wanted to make in students' lives within the system. So I decided to come out of the system and actually go back in and do presentations and offer these fitness classes along with the presentations for educators. Because right now, at least here, I don't know how it is in Europe, but I imagine it's not that different because we all experience these 3 years of, what it was all together. And it's just not the same. And everyone's really struggling mentally. And the part that might be different is that over here, educator mental well-being is not being put as a priority. And so they're really suffering and they're serving from this empty cup, and that's not serving the students. So I'm now saying, okay, let's see the long vision. They always talk about planning for curriculum from the top down. So why aren't we planning for mental health from the top down and starting with the educators and letting them fill up and overflow into their students? So that's why the switch.
Yes. So, uh, in case someone didn't hear it, so Emmy can't hear me talking, so I'm writing my questions to her in the chat. So you seem like you're very passionate about this. Is passion something that we need at school? Is it important, and how can we turn the school into a passionate place, do you think?
What a good question. I love that. Uh, School can absolutely be a passionate place. I think that as it is, there are pockets of passion, and I think it needs to be a passionate place because if we think about ourselves, each one of us, if we're told you have to learn this and you have to learn this as adults, we're like, what? No. And maybe we'll do it because it's our job, and we have to learn this and there's mandatory training, but we don't get excited about that. And then we're not like, oh, okay, I can't wait to go back the next day and learn more. But if it's something that we're passionate about, we'll read or watch videos or, we'll learn hours on end, long past what the, teacher tells us we have to do. And so if we can turn education into that, that's really where the power is going to be, because we've come to an age where we could Google any information. If we teach students how to find information accurately, the what is not so important. It's really like what's inside you that's pulling you forward. Let's learn more about that, and let's learn how to learn how to be a critical thinker, and let's do it from where you're passionate. So I was lucky to have taught for I think 5 years in full day kindergarten where it's play-based, inquiry-based. It was amazing. And then I brought it up into my grade 2, 3 classes. And when we did social studies projects about the world, for example, it wasn't just like the textbook had 5 countries, like Italy, France, I don't know, Jamaica, 5 countries. And a lot of teachers would just say, okay, pick up one of these countries to do your project on, because that's what the textbook had. And I was like, what do you want to learn about? Where do you want to learn about? And a lot of them, it was, where they were born or where their parents were born or their best friend or whatever it was. And they just got to go and find out about that place. And their presentations were so much richer because they had the passion behind it. So it's important in schools. I dare say it's important in all workplaces, whether it's a school, a corporate office, anywhere. Passion is just critical.
Yes. So I'm thinking about something here. So I wrote this as a question to Emmy because when I heard Emmy talk about how kids should just long for going to school, I can't help myself thinking that this is something we all would love to have also at work. Waking up in the morning, longing for going there, feeling that we are doing our very best at work. And if we are managers, this is what we would like to see as along in our team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because if we're just, again, directed, do this, do this, do this, and whatever, instead of what lights you up and how can you lead from there? I actually do presentations now too for a company called Fundamentals of Play. And one of the things is talking about thriving teams lead from their strengths. So they either have people self identify, I'm a great speaker, I'm a great brainstormer. And also, sometimes we don't necessarily see our strengths. So as leaders, we go around and we notice and observe and say, I've really noticed you're really good at that. Do you like that? Yeah, you know what? I really like that. And then they let those people lead them for other parts of the team. It's not just, sorry, you're the accountant, Meg, so you just stay and do the numbers. But if Meg's also amazing at brainstorming, let Meg lead that for all the teams across the company. And then we get to see Meg's passion in that. It ignites our passion in other things. And, it's a ripple effect. I think passion has a huge ripple effect.
Mm. So ripple effect, yes, and so important. And I think that Emmy must have met many passionate people at her work, but also seen how passion can fade away. And now I want her to talk to me about why she think that is so or not. Let's see what she says about this question.
Yes. Well, there's so many reasons I think that passion fades away. One is that exact directed approach, right? Where people don't feel seen, heard, and understood.
Mm.
And when they just feel like, do this and do it in this way and do it by this time, but they're not, their ideas or their thoughts, their passions, maybe even their objections are not being seen, heard, and understood, that makes passion fade pretty quickly. Even someone that you might have loved working with or working for, all of a sudden, if you don't feel those things, because those are basic human needs, if we don't feel it, we're not going to be motivated to, keep giving our most passionate self. And then there's, mental well being in general. If you are not coming from a full cup mentally or physically or spiritually for that matter, then you can't show up as passionate either. So filling yourself first is something not a lot of people do, and that certainly causes passion to fade away as well. Wouldn't you agree, Osa?
Yeah, I think passionate is a very delicate thing. So I'm writing to Emmy now because she can't hear me still. That there is a problem if we not really feel like we are passionate about our work. We need to find a way to reconnect to that passion because I know we all have a passion about something. So what do Emmy think about that? Can we reconnect to our passion?
That's such a good question, because I think the other thing is that society also teaches adults that we're not to be passionate, right? We're to be serious and do our work and all of that. So many of us adults are very disconnected from our passions, whether it's just generally or if it's something that's happened, in our environment that's caused that. And so something I tell people when I ask them in coaching work, like, what are you passionate about? And they're not sure, or even in conversation, I'll just say, you know what? Go back and think about what you loved doing as a kid. Like, was it jumping in puddles? Did you love that? Were you a Lego fanatic? Did you love painting? What did you love to do? And often, most adults aren't going to say, oh, great, I'll just go and jump out in puddles. That's going to bring my passion back to work. But it could be that, you need to be out in nature more. That's what makes you feel passionate and connected. So for that person, going out for a walk at lunch might be an amazing thing to reignite their passion, right? Or just uh, if it is about playing with Lego, like maybe it's you like to build things, so what can you physically build in your work, in your life? So going back to what you liked as a kid, because honestly, kids are so wise. Like, we think the adults know everything and the elders have the wisdom. And I'm not saying elders don't have wisdom, don't get me wrong, but kids, they have wisdom. They have an innate knowing, and they don't have that socialized, like, what we're supposed to think yet. They just are.
Yeah, so this reminds me about the conversation I had, the conversation last week with Jessica Breitenfeld about happiness and having fun. So, and we also ended up in that space somewhere that happiness and passion is something you are more connected, like happiness is more connected to us when we are children because not so many things has come in between. Um, so I'm writing to Emmy now. That passion is kind of the same as happiness, right? See if she understands what I'm writing.
Passion and happiness, the
Yeah.
same.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they're still connected, right? You're passionate about what you're passionate about makes you happy, makes you feel joy, right? I mean, I think happiness is a choice. Every day you can choose to be happy. It's about your perspective. How are you going to see the world? But what brings you joy is those things that you are passionate about, that you love, that inspire you. So absolutely, they're super connected, 100%.
Yes, and Emmy, I know that she's a very passionate entrepreneur, so I'd like her to tell us about her different projects she had now and before, and how that's connected to your passion.
Well, right now I have two main projects, and I love how they have brought my passions together. As I said, one of my biggest passions is speaking. Another one is movement and dance and fitness instruction. And so in my job now, my job, I do it, so I call it my job. But in my business now, I've been able to bring those together and in a way I never thought. And it's so beautiful to be able to go out there and every single day be living my passion by going to educators on the one hand and giving them this workshop about how they can fill themselves up first, how they must fill themselves up first so that they can serve from their overflow to serve the students best. And then with this follow up 6 months of intensati, which is an incredible spiritual fitness practice, which I'll just do one move and show you. Actually, I'll show you my shirt I'm wearing
Oh,
today is one of hers. Oh, can you see? It's called Love is Power, but Intensati. And so, cool thing about Intensati is you can do it sitting or standing. So, are you ready to do it with me here, Åsa? Oh, she's going to let me do the whole thing. Here we go. So, this is happy. So, we just move our arms back in big circles. And I encourage you to do it with me if you're watching live or on the replay. And then you can do a jumping jack if you're standing, but we're going to do it just sitting. And then you add an affirmation. So it could be, I am enough. I am enough, and etc. And then you think the affirmation, put them together in these incredible blocks. And it's beautiful because it combines mindset, which as a teacher, I was super passionate about. And there we go, combines mindset, which I was super passionate about, and movement. You know, the words that are so powerful, which is why I love being a speaker. And intensati, if you're not an educator in a school, don't worry, you can still get it too, because I actually teach it virtually. And for people that are over in Europe, it's actually very convenient because I teach it at 6:10 a.m. Eastern, because I believe that the way you start your day is the way your day continues. But for those of you over in Europe, for example, that's like your lunch break. So you could join too. So there you go.
yes, that's excellent. And I think movement is so important, and we need more of that at school and everywhere, also at work. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Movement, listen, even today, movement is so critical to our physical bodies, to our spiritual and our mental bodies. It is just so critical. It's like anything, like, even just the oiling and whatever, you need to move your body for health reasons. And it does so much amazing things for our mental fitness as well. I mean, studies have shown recently that exercise can be as effective as medication for treating depression. So that's pretty amazing that it is that much medicine, and it really is. Today, I was exhausted. I didn't have a great night's sleep, and I was falling asleep. And I had to go to the grocery store. Just literally pushing the cart for 2 minutes, all of a sudden, I'm feeling more awake. So we've become a much more sedentary society than we used to be. People didn't used to need to exercise because their whole jobs were movement, right? Like physical labor was a big part of it. But for many of us, it's not. And so taking time to move every day, every single day, in a way you like come back to what are you passionate about? How do you like? If you don't like dancing, don't dance. If you don't like walking, don't walk. If you love, running, then do that. Do biking. There's so many ways to move your body. Do something that you're passionate about because that's what's going to make you stick to it too.
Yes. So now here is the thing about passion, and that I met sometimes, because we love to talk about passion and entrepreneurial things, about entrepreneurs, living the dream, their passion. But what about if you're hired? How can you incorporate passion at work then? Is it possible even? So that's a question for Emmy.
Yeah. I think absolutely that passion is super important, whether you're an entrepreneur or if you are an employee or an employer. They're all equally important because if you bring your passion to work, no matter if you are the boss, you are the owner, you are the employee, you're going to feel that much more fulfilled. And it doesn't have to be connected to your work. Like there's really cool ways to incorporate passions that are not work related. If you have a team at work and you're a member of the team and you have some say on meetings, there's a cool thing called Pecha Kucha. Have you heard of Pecha Kucha before, Osa? Cool. Well, maybe not everyone has, but it's a really neat thing that you could do at the beginning of a meeting or, once a month or something, once a week, whatever you want, where you ask one or two people to do a presentation. The two rules are that the presentation must have nothing to do with work and it can only be pictures, no words, like picture or video. So no words. Um, and so imagine that I, show a picture of horses and I show a picture of my trip to Mayan Riviera and I show my kids and my son's in hockey. And then Osa sees it and she says, "Oh my gosh, Emmy, I didn't know that you also went to the Mayan Riviera. So did I." And then, Mary Lou over in another department is like, "Oh my goodness, I also have a son that plays hockey. How did we never know that?" And you start to have these interconnected passions and greater relationships, which leads to happier workers. And of course, happier workers want to stay longer with the company. So bringing your outside passions into work is just as powerful.
Yes. So when I think about passion, I often speak about passion to when I talk about momentum and leadership. I like to think that you also can make your employers um, your employer's passion your passion. Let's see if she understands that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can. Like, I think that that's key when you're taking a position, right? To think about, is this an aligned job for me? And if it is, then what their mission is or their mission statement is becomes something that's driving you as well. So I know that we don't always have the choice. I'm not saying that everybody has the choice to pick the job of their dreams, their first dream off or job offer, anything. But when you're in a position when you're like, okay, I want my next job to be my dream job, then really look at that. Like, what is your employer's mission statement? And do you align with that? Because that's going to help you to go into work every single day feeling on fire and passionate about, moving in there. And if, let's say it's not, let's say you're in a job and that wasn't, you can still find pieces of it, don't you think, Osa? Where there's like, you know what? I align with this piece. So let me focus on that. Because what we focus on is what grows. So even being able to just build on, even if it's one little piece, it'll make your workday that much better for sure.
Yes. So we've been talking about passion in this little strange conversation where I've been writing the questions to Emmy because she can't hear me. But I hope you heard us, and I think you did. And when we talk about passion, I think it's important to think, as we have said today, that passion is something that we comes from within, and we can explore that by looking back at our childhood. Um, and let that be free somehow. And if we from time to time can't find passion really in what we do, if maybe we are employed, we can also actually grab the passion that is this business is built around where you actually work. So recently I went to I was a public speaker, inspirational speaker at AstraZeneca, and we came for some of the people there. We decided that, well, the aim of this business is to bring healing to the world and cure sick children, and that can be my passion for, as for now also, because that's why I work here. And I want to thank Emmy a lot for coming. I'm writing that. So
Thank you
because I
so
think
much.
this
It was
has
so great to be here. Thank you all
been
for
very.
listening. And, you know, add comments if you have questions. We're very happy to, explore further. And it was a great time here with you, Åsa. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Emmy. And I'd like to tell a story based on the question of passion. So I'm traveling a lot, as maybe many of you know, and I'm traveling throughout Portugal, Spain, Europe. Actually, right now I'm in Spain. And a few years ago, we ended up at a restaurant in Ronda. It's a small Spanish town, and at that restaurant was named Loco Tapas, Crazy Tapas. And the employer, no, the owner and his wife were the one running this restaurant or this tapas bar. And they made such an amazing job. The most crazy tapas you ever could see, ever, very odd things. It was very upscale, very inventive. And this was the best tapas I've ever heard. So I had to ask this man who ran this restaurant, what was his story? How did he end up being such an amazing restaurateur serving this inventive and creative tapas? So he told me that from the beginning, his family had made him study law to be a lawyer. And he actually went to the US as a young man. For 2 years, he studied law in the US until he decided that this was not, he knew for longer time than that this was not for him. But after 2 years, he decided to come out to his family and say, no more. I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to cook food. And as you can imagine, this was like 50, 60 years ago. His family was not at all, no, 40 years ago. His family was not at all happy because, lawyers and people running restaurants is not really maybe for some people on the same level, at least not if you are from a long line of lawyers. So they were actually rather unhappy, and yeah, they kicked him out for a while. They reconnected him from the family because they invested 2 years. They wanted him to be a lawyer, and he said, no, I don't want to do anymore. And then he became involved in cooking, and he started this restaurant in the end. After a few years, luckily, they took him back. But what happened here is that he actually had a passion for something. And I met so many people out there, so many experts, leaders, you name it, that tell me the same story. They try to be something they are not. They have chosen a lane which someone else maybe even chose for them. But in the end, the thing you are passionate about, you can't hold it back. So, as Emmy said, if you just sit down and reflect on a deeper level, maybe ask someone for help. What is it that I really am passionate about? What is it that I tend to do over and over again? What makes my heart sing? What did I love as a kid? You will find that passion, or other, the passion will find you sooner or later. You can be sure about that. So, with that, I will end this episode and I wish you all a happy Easter. This is the finale of the Passion of Christ, as some of you might know, which is why I love to